As we move closer and closer to the official launch of the Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7, there was a lot of news and rumor and innuendo out there that might kind of indicate to you that the Z Fold 7 might do exactly what the Z Fold 6 did, and that is sell worse than the prior model. We had these sorts of posts from market analysts showing that Samsung's market share in terms of foldables was actually shrinking year over year. In fact, Counterpoint Research at one point had actually predicted that in 2025, foldable sales in general would decline. You could see here in Q1 that wasn't quite the case, but we also had reports from 9 to 5 Google that Samsung was actually betting fewer people would buy the Z Fold 7. They're going to be making fewer Fold 7s and Flip 7s. Everything seemed to point in that direction. The folds were just trending in the wrong direction, seemingly, as some had reported, as they were waiting on Apple to enter that market and sort of reinvigorate things. But if you've been watching this channel for a decent amount of time, you're probably aware of the fact that I've been talking since we first started getting rumors of the Fold 7 about how I thought everything was set up for it to sell better. Samsung appeared to be finally doing what many people had wanted them to do. So it was hard for me to understand why the expectations were so low. Well, today we have brand new information, news directly from Samsung that is pretty darn cool to see. It is official. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Flip 7, to be fair, they are a hit. So first off, back on the 22nd of July, it was reported that in South Korea, which is Samsung's home territory, obviously, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7 had already received over 1.04 million pre-orders. This number surpassed the previous records held by the Z Fold 5 and Z Flip 5, kind of going back to what I said. Things have been on the decline. It's an even larger increase over last year's models, which apparently only managed to secure 910,000 pre-orders. So in South Korea, things were looking very strong. One interesting thing here is that this is apparently the first time that the Fold model outsold the Flip model in that region. So that's a really big deal. The Flip model has always outsold the more expensive Fold, but in South Korea, amid increasing pre-orders, that was not the case. We also got word that they had broken some pre-order records in India and also in Europe, where pre-orders were 50% higher than the prior year. 50% higher. That is a very large increase. But for people like myself, and maybe you as well, the biggest place we're wondering about is going to be the United States. Well, apparently, and this part is directly from Samsung, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 is now the most pre-ordered Galaxy Fold ever. The most pre-ordered Galaxy Fold they have ever produced. When combined with the Z Flip 7, the new devices have seen more than a 25% increase in pre-orders compared to their predecessors. And U.S. carriers are reporting an even larger spike with a 60% jump in pre-orders. Of course, from your carrier, you're going to get different things like different promotions and trade-ins and just basically carrier deals. So that's important to note. Samsung has also said that since the pre-order window closed, the Z Fold 7 has continued to be in high demand, with orders outpacing the Z Fold 6 by almost 50%. That is a massive increase. They included this quote from their senior vice president of mobile product management. He said, quote, "Foldables have reached an inflection point as they are becoming a mainstream choice for users." That's a bit of a dubious claim to me. They're selling better this year. Are they mainstream? Are they becoming mainstream? I hope so, but we don't really know that for sure. Continuing. Now, on our 7th generation, we've addressed consumer feedback year after year, kind of, and have arrived at the kind of experience you can't get on any other device. When people go hands-on with a Z series device, they're hooked. And now it's all coming together with record-breaking numbers. Obviously, that is PR speak, and some of these things are things you could argue about, but that is what they are saying. Here's some other interesting stuff. As someone who has been a long-term proponent of bright, colorful phones, phones. I've got a D-brand leather skin on here, but you can still see it is that nice, lovely blue color underneath there. Apparently, this is a crazy concept. By giving people the option to buy more colorful devices, they're selling more colorful devices. This Blue Shadow model has apparently made up about half of all Z Fold 7 orders. I love to see that. The coral red color on the Flip 7 has accounted for about 25% of those sales. So I say to Google, to Apple, to all these other big OEMs, are you paying attention? Give us bright, colorful colors. That's what people actually want. We are so sick. I am so sick of these drab, desaturated colors. Lean into this. Take this as a lesson. Give us the colorful options. It is something that so many of us want. And speaking of things that so many of us want, or maybe don't want, something that you're going to notice is conspicuously missing from Samsung's post here, which I will actually have a link to in the description down below, is that they do not mention the FE anywhere. You can do the Control F here and search. The FE model is not mentioned at all. And that, to me, I think indicates that despite sort of our intuition that a cheaper Z Flip model is logical and should sell well, it probably hasn't sold all that well. I think that, like I said, our intuition is that cheaper will sell well. But what if it's the case that Flip and Fold consumers are simply premium consumers, and when we're presented with the full-blown experience or a slightly downgraded experience, we're just going to want to pay the extra and get the full experience. We're not really looking for the cheaper model. Now, that's kind of also logical if you think about it. The people who are buying the expensive phones are interested in expensive phones, and the people that are buying the cheaper phones aren't really interested in the Folds and Flips. Maybe that's just the case. We also have to contend with the fact that so many of my commenters said that without the S Pen, we'll never buy the Z Fold 7, and that is a totally valid position to take. It's a subjective thing that you have to come to terms with. If you care about it that much, vote with your wallet. But here's the thing. The consumers they lost by removing the S Pen, they have more than made up for with who they have gained. So it's an unfortunate reality for the S Pen stalwarts that this might say to Samsung, the S Pen doesn't matter. People don't actually care, or at least not in large enough numbers, and that by removing that digitizer and going thinner and beefing up the ultra-thin glass, which is 50% thicker, which has allowed the crease to be less noticeable. The thing is now rated for 500,000 folds. You can apparently bend it backwards if you are Zach from Jerry Rig Everything and the screen won't fail. Samsung's going to look at that and say, this was the right sacrifice, this was the right trade-off, maybe you would say, to make. So that's unfortunate for the S Pen users who were hoping that maybe there would be a dip and that would signal to Samsung, bring back the pen. That might encourage them to not do that. So guys, what do you think about this? The fact that the Z Fold 7 is an undeniable success. Have you pre-ordered one? Did you buy a Z Fold 7? Do you think this is truly a turning point for foldable phones or just a momentary spike in sales? Do you think that the colorful colors selling well will sort of influence other OEMs to go down the same route and lean into these brighter colors? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.